Good morning. I am Linda Russell, president of your board of trustees, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. So Juneteenth is the celebration of June 19th, 1865. 2 years after Lincoln declared slaves free, Union Army General Gordon Granger delivered the news to the last of those enslaved folks who were in Texas. This holiday has been celebrated throughout the years in the African American community, known as Jubilee Day, Emancipation Day, Freedom Day, Black Independence Day. The first celebration was June 19, 1866. In 2021, President Biden declared it a federally recognized holiday. And I have to say, I have loved to see in the community signs that say closed for the Juneteenth celebration. When Reverend Leslie asked me to speak about Juneteenth, which this year falls on Father's Day, I thought it was only fitting to celebrate Black fatherhood that is so often underestimated in this country. Inherent in slavery was the intentional act of not only demeaning and devaluing a whole people, but the continual practice of separating families, separating people from those they loved. These repeated separations were an attempt to fracture the Black family, the community as a whole, and to led to a false narrative that Black men in particular do not care about their children. While the intergenerational trauma perpetrated during chattel slavery has left deep scars in the form of pervasive, uncured social inequities, impacting not only the African American community, but the greater community of these United States, the celebration of the Black community and the family is at the heart of Juneteenth. Let us bear witness to some lessons from our Black fathers. My father believed that education was the ultimate ticket, particularly for Black folks, particularly for Black female folks. He had 3 daughters. He had no choice. His pursuit of education was fraught with prejudice, discrimination, attempts to crush his dream of becoming a doctor. But through it all, he pursued his love of learning, and his ultimate message to me and my sisters was that we care for each other and that ultimately education was something that no one could take from you. Denzel Washington, the strongest, toughest men all have compassion. They're not heartless and cold. You have to be man enough to have compassion, to care about people and about your children. And from Steph Curry, I'd be lying if I didn't admit that the idea of women's equality has become a little more personal for me lately and a little more real. I want our girls to grow up knowing that there are no boundaries that can be placed on their futures. I want them to grow up in a world where their gender does not feel like a rule book where they should, for what they should think or be or do. I want them to grow up believing that they can have a dream, that they can dream big and strive for careers where they'll be treated fairly and, of course, paid equally. As I think of the Black fathers in my own family, I think of my paternal grandfather who set an example of passion and faith in his 50 years of service as a Baptist minister. I think of my maternal grandfather supporting his 12 children as a coal miner in the 1920s and 30s. Last week, when the Tonys were on, I thought of my cousin, who is the incredibly proud father of one of the performers currently on Broadway. I think of a host of uncles who were an integral part of our family fabric throughout our lives and became love and support to many of us when we experienced the loss of our fathers. I think of the gay fathers in my family who dealt with homophobia from some within the family, within the Black community, and larger society. I think of the adoptive fathers who, wanting to expand their family because they knew there was room in their home and their hearts. My late husband was one of those men. After being a wonderful dad to 2 sons, he was a wonderful girl dad to our daughter. I think of my own father, who taught me not only the power of education, but lived the continuous message of the power and importance and commitment to family. So on this Father's Day, I celebrate all of you, fathers, father types. Today, on this Juneteenth, I invite you to celebrate the joy and the power of the Black family and a community that is not only striving, but thriving, even in the struggle, as Dr. Angelo would say, and still we rise.